In a move that sent shockwaves through the international community, South Africa took the unprecedented step of filing a genocide case against Israel at the International Court of Justice on December 29, 2023. This marked the first time any nation had brought such charges against Israel, a country long accused of human rights violations against Palestinians. The case, rooted in Israel's devastating military offensive in Gaza, has ignited fierce debate and exposed deep divisions on the world stage. South Africa's action is particularly significant given its own history of battling apartheid, a system of racial segregation condemned as a crime against humanity. The parallels between Israel's treatment of Palestinians and South Africa's own past struggles resonated deeply with the South African government and its people. The case therefore carries immense symbolic weight. It raises profound questions about international law, justice, and the limits of state power. The case's significance extends far beyond the courtroom in The Hague. It has reignited global attention on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, forcing world leaders to confront uncomfortable truths about the human cost of the decades-long struggle. Moreover, the case has emboldened other nations to speak out against Israeli policies, signaling a potential shift in the global balance of power. The case before the International Court of Justice is not merely a legal battle, it is a battle for the soul of international justice. It is a test of whether international law can truly hold even the most powerful states accountable for their actions. And it is a stark reminder that the struggle for human rights is far from over. At the heart of South Africa's case lies the accusation of genocide, a crime defined by the 1948 Genocide Convention as acts committed with intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnical, racial or religious group. South Africa argues that Israel's actions in Gaza, particularly during its 2023 military offensive, fit this definition. The offensive resulted in over 48,000 Palestinian civilian deaths, widespread destruction of homes and infrastructure, and a humanitarian crisis of catastrophic proportions. South Africa presented harrowing evidence to the International Court of Justice, documenting the devastating impact of Israel's military operation. Graphic images and videos, eyewitness accounts, and expert testimonies painted a grim picture of indiscriminate bombardment, targeted assassinations, and the deliberate targeting of civilian infrastructure. The evidence pointed to a systematic campaign of violence and displacement aimed at crushing Palestinian resistance and consolidating Israeli control over Gaza. Central to South Africa's argument is the concept of slow genocide. They argue that Israel has been engaged in a long-term strategy of ethnic cleansing, gradually making life in Gaza unbearable for Palestinians. Restrictions on movement, denial of basic resources, and constant military incursions, they argue, are all part of a deliberate plan to drive Palestinians from their land. South Africa's case relies heavily on the work of UN-affiliated organizations and reputable humanitarian groups like the World Health Organization, UNICEF, Oxfam, and Save the Children. These organizations have meticulously documented human rights abuses in Gaza, providing a wealth of evidence to support South Africa's claims. This reliance on internationally recognized bodies strengthens South Africa's position and makes it difficult to dismiss the evidence without undermining the credibility of the entire UN system. The international community's response to South Africa's case has been mixed, reflecting the deeply polarized views on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. While some nations have rallied behind South Africa's call for justice, others have condemned the move, accusing South Africa of grandstanding and anti-Semitism. The case has exposed the limitations of international law and the challenges of achieving consensus on complex geopolitical issues. 14 countries, including Nicaragua, Belgium, Ireland, and Cuba, have formally requested to intervene in the case at the International Court of Justice. These countries, acting either out of a direct legal interest or as signatories of the Genocide Convention, have submitted their own legal arguments in support of South Africa's position. Their involvement lends further weight to the case and demonstrates growing international concern over Israel's actions. However, the United States, a staunch ally of Israel, has exerted considerable pressure on South Africa to drop the case. The Trump administration, known for its pro-Israel stance, went as far as halting financial aid to South Africa, primarily targeting HIV/AIDS prevention programs. This move was widely condemned as a cynical attempt to bully South Africa into silence and prioritize political expediency over the lives of vulnerable populations. Despite intense pressure and the threat of further sanctions, South Africa has stood firm in its commitment to the case. They have defended their actions as grounded in international law and their moral obligation to fight for justice. Their unwavering stance has earned them praise from human rights groups and bolstered their reputation as a leading voice for the oppressed. The International Court of Justice case marks a pivotal moment in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It represents a potential turning point in the quest for accountability and justice for Palestinians who have endured decades of occupation, displacement and violence. Regardless of the final ruling, the case has already shifted the global discourse and empowered those seeking a just and lasting peace. The International Court of Justice's own pronouncements on the case have been significant. The court issued a series of provisional measures, ordering Israel to cease actions that could exacerbate the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. This included calls to halt the expansion of settlements, lift the blockade on Gaza, and ensure unimpeded access for humanitarian aid. However, Israel has largely ignored these measures, exposing the limitations of the court's authority in enforcing its rulings. The case has also emboldened the International Criminal Court. In a move that further angered Israel and its allies, the International Criminal Court issued arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant for war crimes and crimes against humanity in Gaza. While it remains to be seen whether these warrants will be enforced, they send a strong message that those responsible for atrocities will be held accountable. The South Africa case, combined with the International Criminal Court's actions, represents a potential shift in the international community's approach to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It signals a growing willingness to challenge Israel's impunity and hold its leaders accountable for violations of international law. While the path to justice remains long and arduous, the case provides a glimmer of hope for a future where peace and human rights prevail.